But the fact-checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created.
That is code for we want more bigotry on these platforms.
That doesn't mean there's a political bias. That just means one side lies more.
Rhetoric absolutely has consequences. Some people, Mark, storm Capitol buildings because they believe lies.
We could have had our first female president. Instead, we have a man playing G.I. Joe in real life.
All right, welcome everyone. We got a packed episode for you. We're talking about Mark Zuckerberg deregulating his platforms. We're talking about the crazy January 6th event that happened this past Monday. Yeah, April. Wait till you see the footage that I have. It's going to blow your mind. And we're talking about our megalomaniac dictator Trump wanting to maybe invade other countries because America. Roll the stinger. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Another recap. Here we go. April, good to see you, my friend. Have you survived the snow blizzard Armageddon that you got in Kentucky? That's the first question I got to ask.
Yeah, I am still surviving. We have not left our house in several days because there's like 6 inches of snow and then it's like an inch or two of ice and then another inch or two of snow. So the kids were supposed to go back to school this week. And you might hear laughter in the background. That's because they are not at school. It's like a snow day turning into a snow week. Yes. Yes. So I had every intention of this week. I'm like, I'm going to get back into it out of the holidays, start making content. And then snow happened. And so I don't know. I have a really hard time relaxing. I always feel like I need to be doing something. And if I'm relaxing and not doing anything productive, like my body's like, shame, feel bad about yourself. And so
are you a Virgo?
I'm starting to feel antsy. I'm a Pisces, but I honestly don't really know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I know so little. I'm a Virgo. Apparently, Virgos are very hard workers. They can't turn their brain off. And I'm like, yes, that is me. Because people are like, oh, how was your Christmas vacation? And I'm like, well, what Christmas vacation? First off, I had to fundraise for the organization because we're a nonprofit. So end of the year is a huge time for that. But number two, like the news don't stop. My brain doesn't stop. I could be offline for a day, but my brain is still like, okay, you have to get this done when you get back. This video is due tomorrow. What's your thoughts on this thing? Oh my God, you were doom scrolling and want to respond to everything. It's really hard. And I know this is not just a unique creator challenge, but it's hard as a creator in particular to turn the brain off and really like be off. It's just so difficult for me.
Yeah. And well, in the news, honestly, since the election, I haven't been as motivated is not the right term, but it's like there's just so many things I could make content about that I feel like that it almost is like, I don't know. I almost feel like I can't do anything. So like, how do I even choose? What do I even make a video about? It's so insane. And then,
Well, and that's why we're going to be doing our own show. I mean, that's why we are spinning off this weekly recap. We're working on the development. You signed the contract, so it's official now. You're definitely in to make this a reality. The big challenge we have is, speaking of creatives, we don't have a show name yet. So maybe if you want to drop an idea in the comments for this Tim and April show idea, I would love to hear it because we're thinking about different options, but it's hard to kind of capture all the things that we want to talk about in like a title that is also accurate. I mean, we could be real basic and be like, this is the Tim and April show, but it's kind of like, well, what does that even mean? So I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
We're not daily. We're not we are weekly, but what's it when to do twice a week? Is there a word for that?
Bi-weekly?
Not bi-weekly is every other week.
Multi-weekly.
Double twice in a week.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
We need a jingle like on Community where it was Troy and Abed in the morning. Troy and Abed in the morning. Did you ever watch Community?
Yeah, I did. Oh, the Pillow Fort episode is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, I loved anytime they did D&D.
What was the episode? This is such a tangent, but what's the episode where it was like the different timelines in the apartment?
Oh,
that was my yes.
That one was great.
Classic.
So yeah.
It is what it is. Well, like I said, anywho, we will get there. The goal is definitely to do this more often because the news is so crazy and so much is happening. I do want to get to a pretty important story. You know, obviously, April, this past Monday was January 6th. And 4 years ago, we had a major historical moment in the U.S. for all the wrong reasons. And we're going to cover that. But did you know, now let's look at what happened here. President Biden is in power. We had an election. And did you see what happened this past Monday? Did you see the crowds that were protesting the Capitol building? I have footage.
I would love to see the footage.
I have footage. That's not it. That's a different thing. Hold on. I have footage. I want you to see. This is boots on the ground footage of all of the crazy radical left-wing maniacs storming the Capitol building on Monday. Here we go. Look at that. Look at the hordes of people.
Wow.
I know. It's crazy. It's shocking. So many people.
And I thought the left were the violent ones.
I mean,
didn't you hear they burned down cities?
Where is Antifa? Where's the radical left? Why did Vice President Harris certify the election that she lost?
And I don't see a noose anywhere.
Now, April, I do want to be fair and balanced. Okay.
Oh.
There is a video I have of some protests. And I just want to warn the audience, the sign that this person is holding is dehumanizing, which violates our own, standards here. But in the spirit of transparency, there was this. Okay, this was real footage. Here's your protester. Okay, I know for people on podcasts, you can't see it. I'll say what it is, but there you go. Oh. This is a man on a bicycle in the snow by himself, holding a sign that says, "Fuck Donald Trump." So there you go. There's your January 6th left-wing insurrection attempt. It was crazy out there on Monday. I mean, hordes of Antifa and left-wing operatives, the deep state trying to hold on to power because they're so hungry for control. The globalists, the cabals, they're all there, April. The drag queens, the groomers, they're all there.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a joke on podcasts because you can't see any of this. It's a joke. There was no one there. Nothing happened.
Storming.
There was, and more importantly, we have to talk about this. There was no events leading up to January 6th. There were no rallies. There were no marches.
No Jericho marches.
Nothing.
Do you remember the Jericho march where they had the shofar horn?
Yes.
They were blowing and summoning African angels to change
Eric
the election.
Metaxas, Alex Jones, Alexander.
It was
Ali
a prayer
Alexander.
meeting. Yeah, a prayer rally to overturn the election.
So there's a great book by Matthew Taylor called The Violent Take It by Force. And he documents all of the events that led up to January 6th that happened in Washington that were organized by right-wing Christian nationalists, New Apostolic Reformation types, charismatic types, to essentially lead up to January 6th, okay? And I just need to point out, once again, that there was no left-wing anything. Besides the one guy on a bicycle holding that sign up, nothing happened this time around. And I just think it's really important for people to recognize that it's not the left wing, whatever you think is the extreme left, whoever they are. I still don't know, by the way, April, who those people are. Who's the extreme left version of Tucker Carlson? Who's the extreme left version of Charlie Kirk? They don't really exist. But nothing happened on January 6, 2025, compared to, and I have a video of this I want to share. I just want to remind people the kind of things that took place on January 6, 2021, and that it was motivated by a religious fundamentalism in the Christian flavor. So I just want to play this.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to also point out, too, that for the last 4 years, really since January 6, 2021 happened, MAGA Trump supporters have been trying to gaslight everybody that it was either not them and it was Antifa, or it was just a peaceful stroll through the Capitol.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I watched this unfold live on the news. Like, there was no editing. It was just live footage.
Yep.
And don't let anybody gaslight you. This was not just a stroll through the Capitol. It was violent.
It was absolutely violent, and it was religiously motivated. And I think this is the biggest piece that to this day, mainstream media and even left-wing media doesn't really either understand or cover. This was not just like, oh, we don't like the government. It was motivated by the belief that the demonic deep state was taking over America and that Christians had to rise up and take back the country. Okay, and I want to play this clip. This is a pretty well-known clip, but it's just worth listening to or watching if you're, watching this on YouTube with us. Here is what went on after people stormed the Capitol building. The Senate got evacuated, and people took over the chambers illegally. This was said. Listen, I'm going to play the whole thing.
Back to the monument of DC. Jesus Christ, we invoke your name. Amen. Amen. Let's all say a prayer in this sacred space.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for gracing us with this opportunity. Thank you. Let me take it back. Thank you, Heavenly Father.
Amen.
For this opportunity to stand up for our God-given unalienable rights. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building, to allow us to exercise our rights, to allow us to send a message to all the tyrants, the communists, and the globalists, that this is our nation, not theirs, that we will not allow the American way of the United States of America to go down. Thank you, divine, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent Creator God, for filling this chamber with your white light of love, with your white light of harmony. Thank you for filling this chamber with patriots that love you and that love Christ. Thank you, divine, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent Creator God, for blessing each and every one of us here and now. Thank you, divine Creator God, for surrounding and filling us with your divine, omnipresent white light of love and protection, peace and harmony. Thank you for allowing the United States of America to be reborn. Thank you for allowing us to get rid of the communists, the globalists, and the traitors within our government. We love you and we thank you. In Christ's holy name we pray.
There you go. And if you are listening on podcast, many of the men in that room had their hands raised up like they were in some kind of evangelical worship service. And so I just think it's really important, especially given the fire hose of propaganda and lies that right-wing media echoes about the insurrection attempt, that we actually play what things that actually happened there. And you can't get around that. That prayer, thanking not Allah, not a Hindu god, but Jesus Christ. That was prayed, thanking Jesus Christ for the opportunity to make that happen. And it's a real shame because, and I'm not sure about you, April. I talked about this on Instagram on the day of, but you're not going to see, in particular, white evangelical pastors mourning January 6th. You're not going to see widespread, hey guys, we have to really think long and hard about what theology and what cultures and what ideologies led up to people feeling justified in the name of Jesus to do what they did on January 6th. By the way, funded by a lie. And we have to just really say this super clearly. The belief that the 2020 election was stolen is objectively and factually not true. It's like you're arguing if the earth is flat or not. It's not even a debate. And we know that the earth is round and not flat. It's the same thing here. There are mounds of evidence. Rudy Giuliani, Trump's own lawyers, admitted in court there was no widespread election fraud. This whole thing was based on a lie that incited people in the name of God to storm the Capitol building, trying to stop the certification of our democratic process. And they succeeded, by the way, temporarily, but they did. They halted the process. Yeah. And so I'm absolutely not going to allow right-wing media and other Christian commentators to minimize the very real history that this was fun, this was organized, this was done in the name of the Christian God.
I mean, I remember watching the footage and seeing all the Jesus saves signs, and people were praying, doing worship services. There were obviously the flags that were Trump is my president, Jesus is my savior. And honestly, January 6th was an epiphany for me, because really the first 4 years, I don't know about you, but the first 4 years of Trump's presidency, I just kind of thought that white evangelicals just kind of lost the plot, and that they were behaving badly, and they had just gone off the rails. But I was still, I still considered myself evangelical and still conservative and all that. And I was like, they've gone crazy.
Right.
But seeing January 6th, I was doing the same thing in my head of like, oh my gosh, who are these crazy people storming the Capitol, like breaking windows, literally climbing the sides of the building, beating an officer while somewhere in the crowd was a Blue Lives Matter flag. And in the aftermath, when they started revealing some of the people that were arrested in January 6th, Beecher and I knew 2 of them from church separately. And it was this like aha moment of like, these were not those crazy people. These were my people. And if my life had gone just slightly differently, I could have been there storming the Capitol. And it was like my own epiphany of like, oh my gosh, I had been a Christian nationalist.
Yes.
Too. Like there was, I also want to point out too, in that clip that you showed, he referenced in his prayer, thank you for the police officers who let us in. And that's a narrative that the right wing uses a lot, that's saying like, no, we didn't storm it, the police officers just let us in. And I think it's important to point out too that there were blockades out there, but the Capitol Police were overrun. And remember the hero, I can't remember his name, he was an officer who kind of who led them away from,
he diverted them. Mm-hmm.
Right. Anyway, I just wanted to,
I think this is actually a point that's worth exploring for another minute, because I was like you, April. I mean, I started TNE December of 2020. I had a lot of questions. I was still kind of in that space, though, of like, I think that people who are in the tank for Trump have lost the plot. I think that we have some problems here. I have a lot of questions. I actually have a picture of the moment for me on January 6th that I went, holy shit, what is that doing here? And it was this moment right here. When I'm watching live and I see, and this is circled on the right-hand side, the Christian flag moving through the chambers, I thought to myself, what is that doing there? And don't forget, if you grew up like you and I did, April, if you're out there listening or watching, you pledged allegiance to that Christian flag weekly. Maybe it was at Awana as a kid or some other Sunday school thing, or it was just a part of what you did on Sunday mornings. But I pledged allegiance to that flag many times over. I can say the whole thing by heart still. To see that flag in this situation was a moment where I went, oh, no. Something is, this is not just a few people have lost the plot. Something is deeply wrong with the evangelical psyche. And watching, of course, when that all first happened, there were some pastors who spoke out and said, hey, we decry violence. And of course, thank you for saying the bare minimum. But since then, there's no sense of remembrance, right, for white evangelicals. There's no sense of, wow, how did Christian flags and Bibles and crosses end up at an event like that? Because I think long-term, white evangelicalism is incapable of genuine self-reflection in owning when they have egregious problems inside their own base. This is why white evangelicals, largely speaking, I'm painting with a broad brush, but the data bears a lot of this out. But most white evangelicals are more in tune with drag queen story hour 1,000 miles down the street from them than they are about all the pastors who are essaying children in their spaces, right? This is why white evangelicals really think that trans people are one of the biggest threats to America, but had nothing to say on days like January 6th, where their own people, armed with their own iconography of their religion, stormed a Capitol building in the name of God and thanked Jesus for it. So, I think it's just one of those things, and we just did a podcast on this with Jamar Tisby talking about, should you leave your church? And for me, I'm like more and more convinced that the white evangelical ethos is just so deeply problematic that I don't know if it's worth even trying to salvage what remains, because how do you justify this? How do you minimize this? If this picture, and I'll stop ranting here, if this picture had an ISIS flag instead of a Christian flag, you better believe this would be all right-wing media is talking about. And frankly,
Yeah.
a lot of people, including us, will be talking about it too still, right? And a lot of our Muslim friends will be talking about it as well. Like, it would be a huge thing. But because it's a Christian flag, we're just kind of trained to be like, well, not all Christians. And I think it just shows our own bias.
And it also shows, too, there's such this narrative that Christians are persecuted, but if news media, like legacy news media, was being objective in their reporting, they would have been reporting the amount of Christian, symbols and flags and signs that were within the crowd, and they would have been harping on the fact that there was a religious undertone to what was happening. And just think of like the Jericho March, the rally, everything about overturning that election was about God's chosen, was about Trump was God's chosen candidate, and that Democrats had stolen it, and that all these Trump prophets were coming in and saying, like, I know I heard from God and blah, 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 blah. And it's, I think just not to be the mainstream media, but I think they've done everyone a disservice by ignoring the very loud Christian Christian nationalist element of January 6th and of the big lie, and honestly of just Trump's rise to power in general. Even from 2016, white evangelicals helped pave the path for Trump to come into power, and they did it again this year. And
yes.
Yeah. Do you have any of the footage of the storming of the Capitol?
I do. Do you want me to play it?
I just think we just should remind people just briefly of what it was like, because I think it's easy to like hear them saying it was peaceful, we didn't do anything wrong, no one got hurt, and then just to show like, this is this what you call peaceful?
Yeah, I'll just play. I have this stuff archived for these reasons.
Oh, also the hero cop was Eugene Goodman.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Internet, for doing that. Okay, here's just, listen, again, if you're listening on podcasts, you're going to hear a lot of chaos here, but here's a couple seconds of what happened that day. Here we go.
We need to hold the doors of the Capitol. I need police support. We lost the line. All MPDs get back. All MPDs get back up to the upper deck. All MPDs get back to the upper deck.
They were peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love. The love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
There you go. So if you're listening to this on podcast, it's tons of footage of police being beat, of people breaking windows, of people beating on other people. And I'm sure if you heard, it was kind of muffled, but one of the officers yelling, "We've lost the line." You can hear the terror in his voice. I mean, and frankly, and listen, April, you and I have plenty to say about police in general in America. So this is not one of those, look, therefore all police are great. But if I was an officer at the Capitol and I had to protect this building while our democratic process goes forward, and I'm outnumbered like literally what feels like 1,000 to 1, yeah, I'd be freaking terrified too. I would be absolutely terrified to see a mob of angry people believing that people like me are part of the deep state protecting the cabal from stealing America away from them. Yeah, for sure. So I think that is worth absolutely highlighting. I also just wanted to say one last thing, because people often give us crap, oh, you're so judgmental of the church. Well, this is maybe where the Bible comes into play, because I just want to reiterate people, 1 Corinthians 5, okay, verses 12 through 13. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? God will judge those outside. Expel the wicked person from among you. So before you come to the comments, I recommend that you do comment. It helps out with engagement, so feel free. But before you drop the comment that we're so judgmental, The Bible is clear, friends. The Bible is clear. So
Yeah.
that was worth.
So anyway,
highlighting.
just don't let anybody gaslight you, like Elon Musk did. Will you pull up Elon Musk? Like Elon Musk
April,
shared
I'm in your head. It's right there. Look at me cue that up. You see that?
this video. So Elon Musk, who bought Twitter, right, and one could argue heavily influenced this most recent election.
$250 million he put into it. So I would say so.
Yeah. He is also still pointing out the lie that the storming of the Capitol on January 6th was peaceful. He shared this video. It's from the Titanic. If you've seen the Titanic when, is it Rose or I don't know, someone walks in and it's like everyone's welcoming them and it's peaceful and it's to this like really grandeur ballroom. Anyway, the video says POV, you're storming the Capitol on January 6th. And basically it's like you're just being welcomed in and it's beautiful. And literally Elon tweets below it. It's just so romantic.
This goes into a bigger conversation that we have to talk about today. And that is it's one thing to have propaganda espoused from like right-wing commentators or people who like have social media channels. When you have the world's richest man talking about things that are blatantly untrue, whether it's things happening in the UK or it's the insurrection attempt on January 6, 2021, or it's so much of the other misinformation that he's pushed, it just takes it up to another level of just we are in deep doo-doo when people like this with that kind of following and that kind of power have the ability to shape minds in untrue ways, right? This is a great example of that. Elon romanticizing January 6th, downplaying January 6th. It's another example of how bought off and how oligarchic our society has become. And watching right-wing pundits and media be like, oh, Elon, he's a man for free. He's a man who loves free speech, when we all know that's not true. Remember, we covered it last week. He stripped Laura Loomer of of her X platform credentials and ability to have people subscribe to her channel and make money because she went against X or went against Elon. It's just so disingenuous. And it's so obvious what really drives them, and that is power and control, and they'll use anything to do it. Matthew Taylor often says that truth is subservient to power in like fascist spaces, and it's just so true. It's such a true statement. Truth is subservient to power when it comes to Elon Musk or this right-wing media sphere, and January 6th is one of the shining examples of that.
Yeah, and to tie that back to Christian nationalism, Elon Musk recently, just like yesterday,
do I have to do it? Do I have to share it?
Retweeted William Wolf, who we've talked about before. He was in the Trump admin, the first go about. I don't know if he is this time around, but he's an
Elon
openly Christian nationalist. Yeah, and Elon retweeted him.
I really don't know, and I'm going to beat this drum all year, April. I really don't know if non-Christian media spaces understand how significant it is for William Wolf to be retweeted by the world's richest man. I don't know if they understand what is happening behind the scenes. Dusty Devers, William Wolf, Doug Wilson, these people, they are more tapped into power than they let on. And the fact that Elon retweeted William Wolf, someone who has parroted not just dehumanizing things about trans people, which is bad enough, but has argued for borderline racist ideas. He's a complete fundamentalist, anti-intellectual. It's wild. The fact that Elon retweets him and it has 8.5 million views. Oh, God, it's an uphill battle. And it's only going to get worse given what Mark Zuckerberg just did to Instagram.
That was a great segue.
Thank you.
Speaking of billionaires who own social media platforms.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Gee, I don't understand. Well, I do understand. I just hate it. I hate it. Here it is.
Talk about, so you know how like everyone's been saying since Trump won this recent election, do not obey in advance, right? Like keep doing what you're doing. Don't change your behavior and, before any law's been passed or before you're actually in trouble. Like don't obey in advance, because that's your instinct to survive, is to just like, oh my gosh, they're going to do all of this thing, so I need to go ahead and cater my behavior to that. But that is how fascism takes power, is people that just already been to the will before being asked. Zuckerberg here is not following that. He is obeying in advance.
Well, okay. Before we play this video of Zuckerberg talking about the new rules on Instagram and Threads and Meta, we have to point out a couple of things. Number one, Dana White, the director or whatever, owner of UFC, recently joined Meta's board of directors. Dana White was not only a huge Trump supporter, he's caught on camera beating his girlfriend. Like, there's a video of him that has gone viral of him hitting his girlfriend in public. Like, this guy isn't a good dude. And Instagram's director, I think his name is Masuri, that's his name. He always kind of goes, he always posts on updates about Instagram and stuff. He goes, "Thrilled to have you, Dana." And I'm like, what are we doing? This man, why is he joining the board? So it's clear to me that there is, and I don't think this is my opinion, April. I don't think Zuck is not obeying. I think that these billionaires and ultra elitists have always been here. They're just now able to take the gloves off because Trump is really emboldening it. I mean, for crying out loud, Tim Cook donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration. All these billionaires, all these millionaires, all these high-level CEO people are donating to Trump's inauguration to make it happen. Zuckerberg is no different. Absolutely not. And I think what we're going to see is a real shift to the right that's going to embolden a lot more xenophobia, a lot more racism. Yeah. And let's play this video. Should we just play it all the way through, or should we kind of pause as we go along? There's a lot here that he says. It's kind of hard to catch it. What do you think?
I mean, if you want to pause as he goes along, that's fine too. He Meta donated $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund.
Of course they did.
Is that just for the inauguration? What does that mean? What is the inaugural fund?
I will look into that. I'm not exactly sure.
Because I keep seeing that. I'm like,
me too.
What is that fund? Maybe I'll do a quick Google search.
Well, and also I think we need to remember that there is such a thing as like corporations ultimately do not have like a moral compass attached to them. Their moral compass is, how do we get more consumers? How do we make more money? So if it was popular at one time to come across as like we're inclusive and affirming, and that falls out of vogue, they're obviously going to pivot to wherever the market goes. Does that make sense? So I'm not surprised that Zuckerberg is doing this, or that, other people like Tim Cook is doing this, because they see who's in power. They see how Trump got elected. They see what talking points resonated with his base and with the general American population, even though it's full of propaganda. And they're going to pivot to adapt to the market to keep their consumers. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Sidebar, other people have asked, because Newsweek has a article that the headline is, "What is an inaugural fund?"
Thank you.
It is a fundraising effort that supports the inauguration of the new president as well as its related events. So it's literally just inauguration day, like the
celebration,
opening breakfast, the galas, all the fancy schwancy.
Yeah. Because billionaires need more billionaire money to do this. All right, let's watch this video. Let's hear what changes are coming to Instagram and Threads. This is a 5-minute long video. You said it was 3. It's longer than that.
Okay, well, it didn't feel that long.
Here we go.
When I watched it.
Hey everyone, I want to talk about something important today. Because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more.
Okay, pause. First up, not potential harm. I'm not sure if people remember all the anti-vaccine rhetoric and how people didn't take vaccines and some of them died during COVID. Or some of them took ivermectin instead of like getting actual help. So it's not just about potential harm here, Mark. There's actual harm. Like rhetoric has consequences. And yes, we can get into the weeds and debate free speech and what that means and all that. I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go along. But let's just be clear. Rhetoric absolutely has consequences. Some people, Mark, storm Capitol buildings because they believe lies. Okay? So rhetoric has consequences.
I don't know if you remember Facebook in 2020, but it was wild. That was like peak QAnon.
Yeah.
So people were talking about, reptilians that were controlling Democrats, and they were drinking children's blood from some kind of underground pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. Like, it was insane. And the COVID vaccine stuff that came out a little bit later, someone told me, like, there were so many conspiracies, but I had someone, and I saw this repeated in Christian groups too, that if you took the vaccine, you were forfeiting your ability to be a child of God, that you were no longer owned by God. You were owned by the U.S. government according to the U.S. patent laws. So who knew that the God of the universe had to follow?
What a weak God! He can't even. They can't even defeat Meta. Wow. All right.
Yeah. Anyway,
a lot of this is clearly political.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there.
Yeah.
Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation.
Nick
These
Fuentes.
are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship.
I gotta say, April, I've been on Instagram now for 4 years. I've covered all kinds of stuff. I think I've been maybe censored like a handful of times, and it was really honestly early. It was early on. It was a couple of years ago. I haven't had any problems. So I don't really know what Mark's talking about, unless what he's talking about is, hey, I have right-wing friends who are mad that they can't say that the Holocaust wasn't real without getting flagged. I mean, literally, what are we actually talking about here? Like, who's getting censored? And being shadow banned, by the way, they've changed their policy. Instagram changed their policies a year ago that will show you what posts got flagged, what the consequences are, and how long it's going to last. So this idea of being shadow banned is just, like, to me, kind of ridiculous, but I digress.
I mean, I've seen a lot of right-wing people complain on Facebook.
They always complain
that their stuff's getting shut down. Like, literally, I've seen someone who's like, "Oh, Facebook took down my post, and all I shared was a Bible verse, and it was like, thou shalt not steal." But then, like, there was also a whole paragraph about the election was stolen and a bunch of literally just misinformation and QAnon stuff.
And by the way, statistically, right-wing media uses social media the most effectively. Go look right now at the followings of Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Matt Walsh, Daily Wire, millions of followers across all meta platforms. So I'm not sure what Mark is talking about here. I'm sure maybe he has more details than we do, but like the complaints from right-wing media that they've been censored is just patently not true. They are some of the biggest organizations, period, on these platforms, with some of the most viewed content, period. Charlie Kirk does over 1 million views every reel that he posts. I have data on this because I've tracked it. So it's just ridiculous to be like, yeah, we're really censoring too much here at Meta. Like, okay, all right.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech.
As opposed to
So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US.
Disaster.
After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy.
Which is true. They stormed the Capitol, Mark, on January 6, 2021. Yes, they tried to stop our freaking democratic process.
They brought a noose and were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence."
Mark, this has got to be disingenuous. You're smart, right? You created Facebook when you were still in college. You have to know what happened and what has happened since then. Come on, dude.
But the power has shifted. So
exactly, April.
He's shifting with the power because as a billionaire, he can afford to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
According to who? Go ahead, April. You go. You take it.
This is my biggest issue with the whole both sides narrative. They've taken it too far and it's too politically motivated or politically biased. One side astronomically spreads misinformation more than the other side. And that is why one side gets fact-checked more. Because one side lies more and spreads more information. That doesn't mean there's a political bias. That just means one side lies more.
It's like, okay, here's what this is like. It's like two different students take a math test, and one gets more wrong answers than the other. And the fact checker, the teacher, goes, "Okay, Bobby, you got a 65, and you, Amanda, got a 95. And the parents of Bobby are like, whoa, that you're real biased, fact checker. Like, wow, you are. How dare you? Like, both sides, just difference of opinion. That's what we're talking about. Now that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, the same thing happened in one of the debates between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, where the fact checkers said, like, they caught Kamala in, like, I don't know, a handful of lies. It was like less than 10. And then they had like 30 plus for Trump. And all these Trump supporters were tweeting it out to be like, oh, bias. I'm like, no.
You're just wrong.
Trump was lying about immigrants eating dogs and cats.
Right. The New York Times documented over 34,000 lies by Trump just in 4 years. I mean, again, and full circle moment. Does truth matter? Because if you grew up like we did, April, truth matters, right? It's not about your feelings. Does. It's about facts over feelings. So, Mark, like, what are we talking about here? And that doesn't mean, just to be really clear to the audience, because I always get this kind of flack, no one, especially us, are saying that mainstream media gets everything right or even does a good job of a lot of things. We critique them heavily, especially when it comes to Christian nationalism. And certainly a lot of them don't cover, I would argue, very important news topics well enough, like the genocide of the Palestinians that's still ongoing, okay? For sure. But let's not make it seem like the right wing of our American political system that has been hijacked or has evolved into a borderline fascist movement built on propaganda is somehow like, crying wolf because they get fact checked and they're found out to be wrong about a lot of stuff that they say. Yep. And Mark's like, our fact checkers here, they're just too politically biased. We hired a bunch of woke Marxists and we're sorry. Like, Mark, like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, Okay. We can do this, April. We can do this.
Breathe. Yeah.
Deep breath.
So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system.
Oh, good.
Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse.
Are they, though?
What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far.
That is code for we want more bigotry on these platforms.
We
want more xenophobia on these platforms.
One of those changes to the hate speech guidelines is now people you are allowed to you're not allowed to call somebody mentally ill as an insult, but you are now, and they just changed this in this new rule, you can call someone who's queer mentally ill now. That's not considered hate speech because it said of the discourse that is online and how people feel about being transgender or, whatever queerness you want to say. Like, literally, that is so messed up on so many levels. Like, it's really infuriating, actually.
Yeah, it's infuriating.
Yeah, here's the quote. Here's what it says in the revised company guidelines. We do allow allegations of mental illness or abnormality when based on gender or sexual orientation, given political and religious discourse about transgenderism and homosexuality and common non-serious usage of words like weird.
Yep, we're going back to, the 1980s and 70s when gay people were seen as mentally disturbed and ill people.
Right, and that used to be, that used to be the societal understanding of that until we learned more information and realized that was wrong.
I mean, we're going to watch Meta be turned into X, and I'm still on X. Every time I post, I get compared to being a Jew. I get compared to being a sodomite. Like, that's the actual language I hear in these spaces. Don't forget, Nick Fuentes was unbanned from X thanks to Elon Musk, the man who denies the Holocaust and is an openly, admittedly self-described white nationalist. It's only a matter of time before he's on that platform.
Who said to all women, your body, my choice.
Yeah, right. Like, and by the way, hold on, I gotta say this. I'm sorry, I gotta say this.
Yeah, okay.
Free speech in America means that the government doesn't throw you in jail for the words that you say or the things that you believe. And that's not happening. Nick Fuentes is not in prison for believing that. No one in America is thrown in prison for these beliefs. That does not mean that platforms, social media platforms, can't decide how they moderate different types of content on said platforms. To use the free market argument, if you don't like what Meta is doing, go to a different platform. right? But instead, this whole conversation is framed as a free speech debate, as if people who are bigoted and homophobic have a constitutional right to tell other people those things on things like X or on Instagram. They don't. You can say it wherever you want that will allow it. You can say it in the privacy of your own house. You can go out and probably even yell it on the public street corner. But places like this have a right to moderate, which, by the way, I've gotten flagged for stuff. TikTok has taken down my videos because I featured a pastor holding a gun. What I didn't say was, oh my gosh, my free speech is under attack. No, I understand. Right. TikTok has policies. It is what it is. So frustrating.
I've had stuff flagged before too, and you just move on.
You move on with your life.
Yeah. Also, the community notes thing. I don't know if you remember when I was getting death threats right before the election for saying that I was a Christian wife and mom who voted for Kamala because I was tired of Christian Nationalism, blah, 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 blah. And then I was literally getting death threats for that. One of the main guys, Andy No, which you went after, who went after me, who has like, I don't know, 1 million plus followers. His whole point, because I blocked him after he literally found a picture of my family and posted online.
Free speech, April.
He was going to write a community note on mine, and he literally complained about it because he apparently worked for Community Notes and X. I don't understand, but he was all like, "She blocked me before I could write the community note that she's actually just pretending to be conservative or moderate." Their version of Community Notes is so stupid too that they think conservatives think they have a monopoly on family values that because I said I was a Christian wife and mom, which is just factually true, I was deceiving people because I didn't express that I was a progressive Christian because people would assume that I was conservative or moderate and therefore needed a community note. But that's so stupid. And for those who don't know what a community note is, it's literally just the community can like anyone, if you see a post, you don't like it, you can click a little 3 dots and say add community note. And you can, I don't know like at what number it actually gets flagged, but after a certain amount of community notes, it'll automatically add a little disclaimer above or beneath the post that says community notes. Some people say that this isn't true because blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find one. Of course, I can't now. So it is what it is. But yeah. So yes. Okay. Exactly right. All right. Let's get back to this. Man.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. We are 2 minutes in.
I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms.
Woohoo.
We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down.
Yeah, I mean, so essentially his whole point here is that we've made mistakes in the past, so our solution is we're going to be open to making more mistakes by not taking enough stuff down that could be really dangerous and problematic to certain types of people. I mean, that's what he's saying here. He's essentially saying we'd rather have more stuff, more content on our platforms, including really dangerous and problematic stuff, and not get that flagged, than take down someone's post because our filter was too sensitive. Which, by the way, you can always appeal, but... I mean, it's all just code. Like, if you are around right-wing spaces at all or Christian nationalist spaces, you know what he's saying. Like, you know what he's saying. He's saying, hey guys, I think the right is in power now, and we're going to tweak our rules and policies to better privilege those positions, as hateful as they might seem. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
I mean, I will say I've had friends who have made a decent amount of money from Facebook lives and stuff who had been demonetized for really stupid things. And like, it's really hard to talk to a person at Facebook.
Sure.
And so if this helps keep that from happening, cool, great. But I just the reason that he's saying it, that it was like politically biased, like the reasons I hear of people being demonetized are like for really stupid reasons, not political really at all. It's like nudity, and it was like a picture in the background of like a painting, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So,
for sure.
but yeah. Anyway,
We'll take that.
Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed. So we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive.
Well, I mean, first off, good luck with that. But number two, just so everyone knows, when Meta announced a couple months ago that they were going to really limit how political content got thrown into the algorithm and that would get recommended, a lot of left-wing creators raised a ruckus. They did nothing. But now that Trump's in power and right-wing media is bigger than ever, now we're gonna, we've gotten new feedback, guys, that you want to see more political content. So we'll go ahead and turn the switch back on, which, by the way, we're going to take full advantage of. Like, this is great for me, too. I absolutely plan on making more and more political content, just saying the quiet parts out loud. We'll see how that gets picked up by the algorithm. But it's just, again...
I was on Facebook. I feel like I haven't stopped seeing political content ever.
Interesting. Well, I think that one of the rules was like you can't advertise political content. I think a couple of organizations were like, oh, we can't do an ad that's political in nature. So maybe they're going to turn that off. But again, when you have billionaire money and your organizations like the Daily Wire have $220 million of revenue, you get to dump a few $1 million in ad revenue, right? And get your messaging out really effectively. So it's just, again, maybe it's a double-edged sword. I'm happy on this level that we'll be able to make more political content and that it will get picked up. But also, I know who has the real funding and power to make that happen on a much bigger scale than we ever could.
Yeah.
Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas.
Oh.
As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams.
Wow.
Finally,
in Texas?
Wait. Moving to Texas will reduce the amount of bias in your teams?
Interesting.
You mean where Governor Abbott is, the guy who put razor wire up to try and stop immigrants from crossing the that area? That's where you think the less bias is?
Texas has a bounty hunter law. If you find out someone got an abortion out of state, you can report them.
Yeah, right. I mean, Kate Cox, right, couldn't get an actual abortion, and she almost bled out to death. But don't worry, guys. In Texas, they're way less biased. You're going to be just fine. Wow.
With President Trump to push back on governments around the world, they're going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The U.S. has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there.
Wow.
Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the U.S. government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the U.S. government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further.
So this is just an oligarch complaining that the government kept them in check over the past 4 years. That's what this is. And again, like during COVID, there was so much misinformation. The Biden administration asked Meta to take certain things down. And they
were literally trying to save lives because people were refusing to take the vaccine because they thought it was about population control and that they would die within 12 to 18 months after taking it.
And as far as I know, the government couldn't force Meta to do that. They weren't like, listen, we're the government, take this stuff down. It was more of, hey, can you help us take down misinformation that is killing people? Like, we New York City had to bring in tractor trailers to keep all the bodies because the morgues were full. So
I wonder,
again, you're just watching a billionaire do billionaire things.
It will be
textbook.
Interesting to see what happens with TikTok because Trump has hinted at saving TikTok. Part of me wonders if this play here that Zuck's doing is a way to basically show Trump like, hey, You can have all you want with us. You don't
Totally.
need to save TikTok because TikTok is a competitor
Yes.
to Zuck, and he wants TikTok banned. I would imagine.
For sure.
Like number one competition.
John Oliver did a whole story on the TikTok ban and who stands to benefit from TikTok getting banned. Newsflash: Google and Meta to benefit, right? I mean, there's so many things happening behind the scenes here. Of course, a billionaire who runs a mega corporation is going to want to do everything he can to cozy up to the Trump administration, who loves billionaires and loves big corporations. I mean, Trump has stacked his cabinet with the most billionaires in American history. Don't worry, though. He's really looking out for the little guy. He really cares about the wages of Mark's employees and making sure that no one is exploited. He really cares about that. Or he cares about Zuckerberg moving his moderation content centers to Texas because, quote, they're less biased over there. Jeez, okay. All right, let's finish this thing up.
But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
Yeah, okay. Goodbye. Get off the screen.
Cool.
I'm all done with you.
Good job.
By the way, don't forget, when they launched Threads, people flocked to it over X. They flocked to it. Blue Sky, same thing, right? Blue Sky took off this past year because of all the trash on X. And I don't know. I mean, I guess Mark must have information that we don't have access to on a bottom line level. But I absolutely hate this. And my guess, I could be wrong, but my guess is that over the next year, we're going to see Instagram and Threads become more and more like X, full of anti-Semitic, dehumanizing people, bullying people, anonymous troll accounts, a lot of harmful DM content. And Mark being like, well, look, it's free expression. Free expression. Sorry. Is what it is. I will say, good news though, we are building out, I can't get into details, but we are actively working on building out our own community space that should launch in the spring or summer that will allow people to get access to our content and each other without having to go through Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. So we are working on creating our own hub for people where you don't have to worry about logging in and getting a death threat from someone who's a bigoted, xenophobic, jerk. So we are working on that, friends. So stay tuned. But that's the only good news I got for this one, because this whole video, when I watched it, April, I was like, yeah, this is just it's so clear where he's heading. And I think we're in for some pretty dark days.
Yeah, maybe he's heading to the Gulf of America.
Good segue.
Thank you.
Let's wrap this episode up because we're always over. Yeah, Trump. I mean, Trump is really something else. I mean, jeez. I hate to say this because obviously I would much rather have Trump not in office. But the silver lining is that we are going to have endless content for the next year, 4 years, for sure.
Too much content.
Too much. Yeah.
And he hasn't even been inaugurated yet.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway,
what is up with this? What is up with this talk about taking over Panama and Greenland and Canada? Okay, so this is Trump speaking about these things. Listen to this little bit here, and we'll kind of get into it. Here we go. Check this out.
Please. President, thank you. Wanted to touch on the world on fire that you mentioned, but let's start, if we could, with your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two.
I mean, just pause there for a second. This whole right-wing world ran on, we don't want to be in endless wars.
Yep.
We get us out
There were
of Ukraine.
no new wars under Trump.
And he's not even inaugurated. And now it's like, guys, Trump is so genius. We got to take over Canada and Greenland and the Panama Canal. And Trump's like, I can't guarantee I won't use military force. And they're like, wow, President Trump, you're genius. You're genius. What? The whiplash. My neck has broken.
One of the whole MAGA talking points leading up to the election is Trump will stop World War III. He'll stop it from happening. But now in this weird plot twist, is he going to start it? Was that what they weren't telling us? He's not going to stop it. He's actually going to start it.
Isn't Greenland under control of by Denmark?
I believe so.
I'm looking this
but
up.
I do.
I have to
Let's
fact check.
see.
Oh yeah, it looks like it's part of the Danish kingdom. So I would imagine then they would get the same benefits of universal health care and probably better wages. I don't know why Greenland would want to become an American state, given that they would lose access to their health care. If there's paid family leave, they lose access to that. I'm not sure what's so great about becoming another state in America if you're Greenland. I mean, guys, keep what you got.
So I also think in 2019, Trump also floated the idea of buying Greenland. So this is something that he's wanted to do.
I hate it. It's so, again,
for a while.
Trump, you say America first, right? Americans first. And your top of the order, the top of the line item is acquire another country. How about we solve affordable healthcare here, paid family leave, let's get student loan forgiveness done, let's make college affordable so we can get people in the workforce earning a fair wage. There are so many things we could do right now in America to be consistent with your America First agenda that doesn't have to include taking over Canada, or in Charlie Kirk's case, what did he say? I have it here. The Gulf of America. Literally, this is
Trump also said in that same press conference that he was going to change the name from Gulf of Mexico to call it the Gulf of America.
Okay, then we'll keep playing the video then. Where is it? Here.
I don't know if it's in that video because it was another section. I didn't pull that one. Do you want me to try to pull it real quick?
No. I mean, do you want me to finish this little clip that you pulled?
I mean, that's basically the gist, is that he said he could not say that he would not use military force to take over the Panama Canal.
And then, look at people like Matt Walsh, right? Matt Walsh tweets, I want the U.S. to buy Greenland, mainly because seeking and acquiring new land is a sign of a healthy, thriving nation. This is colonizing language. Yeah. Matt Walsh again. If we're acquiring Greenland, we should at least consider also taking Canada. North America should be ours. We could conquer Canada bloodlessly in about a week. Something to think about, folks. What? No. Why do we want to do this? Why?
I mean, Trump has been hinting at wanting to make Canada the 51st state, which is insane because Canada is huge.
Colonizers gonna colonize, right?
Also, I would just like to point out too that the governments of both Denmark and Greenland have come out strongly against the idea that they could be bought. Quote, Greenland's prime minister said, "We are not for sale and will never be for sale. We must not lose our years-long struggle for freedom."
Right. Again, we've been saying for years the colonization rhetoric that we heard. I mean, Charlie Kirk, colonization is a net good on the world, and now people like Matt Walsh are doing what colonizers do. We have to take over another country. Why? Why do you have to? We literally have in America the most wealth out of any country. Period. And we have only 3% of the world's population. We have more than we need, Matt. We have more than we need in terms of space, in terms of population, in terms of innovation and money. Why do we need to take over other countries?
Does this fall into America First? Does this help the price of eggs go down?
I'm sure that right-wing media is working on the propaganda to spin it as America First. I'm sure we're going to hear some new talking point, some new slogan that's going to sum up the idea of, look, America First, take over Greenland. I can see it.
Oh my gosh. What is happening? Is this real? We could have had our first female president.
Yeah.
Instead we have a man playing G.I. Joe in real life.
And this is a Christian nation, apparently, right? A Christian nation that doesn't take care of their sick, doesn't take care of their poor, their unhoused. No. Those people are weak and lazy and pathetic, according to Christian nationalists. But looking at Canada or Greenland, now that's a Christian nationalist ideal.
So stupid. It's so stupid.
I hate it here.
Read the teachings of Jesus, Christians. I almost said the cuss word.
Oh,
which I
you
guess
almost
I could.
cursed? Oh,
I did.
You could say it.
I know. Sidebar. This is total sidebar.
So I'm wearing this shirt, by the way. Break up with white Jesus. See it?
Oh, love it.
Thank you.
Love
Andre
that.
Henry. You can buy a shirt from him.
I am doing stand-up next week for the first time.
Oh, shoot. That's exciting.
And I've been writing it out, and I wrote the F word in once, and then I deleted it. I was like, I don't think I can do it.
April, you're so close.
I don't think I can do it. Yeah, sidebar. If you want to come hear me, I'll be in Nashville January 16th. It's a Thursday, so it's just a few days before the inauguration, and it's a night of comedy with Christina Hart is hosting it. I've got tickets on my
Christina, right?
page. Yep, Edgy Christina Hart. So I'll be doing one set, but there's a bunch of other funny people that are actually comedians. I'm doing it for the first time, but other people have done it. So
are you nervous about it? How are you feeling?
I'm very nervous, actually. It's something that's been on my bucket list. I've always wanted to try it.
You're gonna be great. You're gonna kill it.
I'm trying to write it. I don't know.
Are you gonna record it?
Well, hopefully, if anything, I'll just hand my phone to someone that will hopefully film it for me. But we'll see. It will not see the light of day if it's terrible. So if I don't post it, I don't know.
It's more content. We could do a live reacts to your own stand-up.
That sounds awful.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, I mean, the only other thing I wanted to cover maybe this week. Listen, a lot of things happen in the news. We try and keep it somewhere at the intersection of theology, politics, and culture. I mean, we could. Do we talk about the Holy Post video?
You brought it up, so you might as well.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't like taking little snipes at other orgs that I think are doing really good work overall. I think that the Holy Post overall is doing a good thing. A lot of people who are leaving high control evangelicalism find them as kind of the next step towards that progression. And so I just want to preface, like, us talking about this clip is not, I'm not trying to shame them or I'm not trying to put them down, but they had a guest on one of their like podcasts, and what she said, it just really came across the wrong way for me. And I think
it's not even that.
It.
Yeah, and it's not even that they had a guest. They clipped this out and posted
this
clip.
Right. I mean, they shared it online. And by the way, to be clear, Holy Post people, if you're watching this, you are more than welcome to critique us online. I never take it personal. You can respond to any of our content. I'm not going to be like, what the heck, guys? So this is just a non-dehumanizing approach to like, guys, really? So this is the Esau McCulley podcast. By the way, I'm a huge fan of Esau. His book, Reading While Black, is fantastic. I'm a huge fan. We'd love to have him on the show at some point, although he might not come on now after doing this, but it is what it is. And on
this
the bottom,
is connected because Edgy Christina Hart, she made the shirt that they're talking about that says, I'm a love your neighbor Christian, not a storm the Capitol kind.
Well, should I go change and wear that shirt? We can edit that part out so it's like an instant snap.
If you want to.
Okay. Get ready. Okay.
Where's your shirt?
For 10 minutes and couldn't find it. I wore it, though. I wore it in the previous video. I'm not sure where it went.
I've got mine.
Perfect. There it is.
There it is.
I'm a love your neighbor Christian, not a storm the Capitol kind. Okay. So, what do you know this person's name? I'm blanking on it.
Oh, I was not familiar with her.
Me either.
Before this.
I have her here.
Hold on. Instagram.
I tagged her. Her name
Did she respond?
Her name is Tish Harrison Warren.
Like she's an author.
Okay. Yeah, it says that she is former weekly newsletter at New York Times opinion columnist at CT Mag, author Liturgy of the Ordinary and Prayer in the Night, Anglican priest. She's also a priest. So here's what she said in regards to that shirt. And they dropped this. When did they drop this video? Right around like January 6th. Yeah. So
yeah.
Let me take a look here. When did they drop it? I'm looking at it. They dropped it, 5 days ago. So a couple of days before the insurrection. Here's the clip. Here we go.
Like, I'm not a storm the Capitol kind of Christian. I'm a love your neighbor kind of Christian, which I'm for. But there's a lot of, I want to quickly pull things out. Like, number one, are those the two options? Number two, to say I'm a love your neighbor kind of Christian, I don't think I could ever say that about myself, in the sense of it seems so self-righteous to me. Like, I am trying to love my neighbor. I want to love my neighbor, but I'm also need to be a constantly repenting Christian for the ways I'm not loving my neighbor. I just think that wading into the complexity of what Jesus has called us to, what you're saying, it absolutely takes apart the right-left categories, because Jesus offends both the right and the left. And again, no one's saying both sides are equal, but we are saying like both sides will fall under the judgment of God, and not that neither side is perfectly righteous. But I think more than that, like, to construct a community where the gospel is preached and where we actually love our neighbor is this pretty difficult thing. And I think a lot of times we just we stand in the public square like the Pharisee who said, thank God. What was the story?
I'm not like
a woman. I'm
Pharisee.
not. And exactly. I'm not like this person. Instead of like us actually locating sin inside ourselves and not just in the other political party.
You want to go first? April.
Sure. This honestly just feels like a Jesus juke. Do you know where someone's like, "Oh, I can one up that." Because in evangelical world, there's always like, if someone's saying something, which let's be real, Christina's t-shirt, it's snarky. It's supposed to be kind of funny. It's tongue in cheek.
Right.
But it's also just a fact. Like, Christian nationalism, right-wing Christians for years and years, decades, but we've seen it more recently, have co-opted the faith for a right-wing extremism. They have co-opted Christianity to be, conflated with republicanism. And so and to the point where nowadays, if I tell someone I'm a Christian, I feel like I have to clarify, because when they hear the word Christian, if they're not in that world, they immediately think white evangelical Trump supporter.
Yep.
That is what it has become synonymous with. So you have to distinguish yourself of like, no, I'm not going to storm the Capitol because I believe God chose the serial adulterer, criminal felon to be president. I'm just going to try to love my neighbors, including that Trump supporter. But I love my neighbor. Like, I believe in loving my neighbor, which I don't believe that is self-righteous. That is literally just the teachings of Jesus. Jesus says to love thy neighbor. Would you then call Jesus self-righteous? But in this world, it's very, that's how it is. Like, it comes across like, oh no, I'm the more humble one because I would never say that I'm a love your neighbor Christian,
right.
But really it's still elevating yourself as you are on your spiritual high horse by looking down at someone like that. To me, it actually, what she's doing comes across more self-righteous.
Yes. So I did a 4-minute response to this on Instagram. People can watch the full thing, but my highlights are, number one, we live in a cultural moment where Christians stormed our Capitol building 4 years ago. Yeah. And many of them, especially white ones who look like me, think that it was no big deal, or that it was largely a deep state operation, or that whatever, it was justified. So yes, I absolutely need to let my neighbors know that I'm not in line with that kind of Christianity. That's number one. And number two, I mean, even like how she uses that parable of the Pharisee. If you read the text, the Pharisee is denigrating people beneath him. Not like the adulterer, like the sinner, the tax collector. This is that shirt that you're wearing that I also have but can't find is a punch up towards the people in power, saying, no, like, I'm letting my most marginalized neighbors know, like, hey, I also stand against that kind of Christianity. The Christianity that says my trans neighbors are demonic. The Christianity that says DEI hires is reverse racism. The Christianity that says we have to make sure that blasphemy laws are enacted to put the atheists in jail. Hello, Stephen Wolf. And I think that one of my issues with like this, well, both sides, guys, Jesus offends both sides. First off, what both sides are we talking talking about here, because Jesus doesn't mention trans people. He doesn't talk about gay people at all. He doesn't mention abortion one time. So let's just start there. And he does condemn, by the way, the rich very often. It's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Now, that's
fake news.
That being said, there certainly is a establishment problem in democratic spaces for sure. And as you know, April, and people watching and listening, we critique the Democratic Party heavily for their complicity in funding the genocide of the Palestinian people. So certainly, I would agree that Jesus would hold both sides to account. But the context that I usually hear that kind of comment in is in regards to certain culture war issues by white moderates who are trying to play the in-between game. Right. Well, guys, we don't want to give over to extremes. And what I'm saying is, you read the Beatitudes, they're pretty freaking extreme, but they're extreme for love, and they're extreme for humanization, and they're extreme for the most marginalized. So for me, it's not a matter of if it's extreme, it's automatically bad. It's, well, what are we being extreme about?
Yeah.
And so for me, this whole clip that the Holy Post picked up and shared, it just kind of misses the mark for me, honestly. It's like, that shirt lets my other neighbors know that as a Christian, a follower of Jesus, I also stand against the people who brought Bibles into the Capitol building, who brought a noose to hang the vice president, who brought a Christian flag in the Senate chambers and said, "Thank you, Jesus, for giving us this opportunity." So if you think that's self-righteous, it is what it is. To me, it's just letting my neighbors know that I'm not like the people who are trying to do harm to you. And of course, to be clear, no one loves their neighbor perfectly, including myself. I think every Christian would say that we do things imperfectly. That's implied. So kind of picking up this idea of what she said, where she's like, I want to love my neighbor, but I can't say I am loving my neighbor. It's just semantics. Like, okay.
Right.
Tomato,
well, it's
tomato.
just the same thing as like anyone who's like, oh, I follow Jesus. Like, that's self-righteous. Are you actually following Jesus? Like,
exactly.
I don't think you're doing it perfectly. Like, you could say that about anything.
Exactly. So, yeah, again, I debated bringing this up. I don't want to come across like, I don't want to give into the stereotype that, you know, people in progressive spaces eat their own. This is not what this is about. Obviously, I think Esau does really great work. I think that overall, I mean, I've had Caitlin, I think her last name is Scheiss, on the podcast before. She's one of the main hosts on the Holy Post. This is not a shot towards them as an organization, but I just think that this clip and the fact that they pulled it and posted it, to me, it's just like, guys, come on. Like, it's just kind of a miss.
Well, I do think people like the Holy Post, they still run in conservative spaces a little more than we do. And so
they definitely do.
And I think that they still want to, they almost still, I think they might even still claim the conservative marker a little bit. I'm not sure, but I know, like, I feel like they still want to be in those spaces. Like, they still feel like they're a part of evangelicalism to a degree. And so I do think when you're doing that, like, you just still will miss.
Yes.
I mean, everyone will miss the mark every once in a while, but I think it maybe they're, I'm trying to think of how I'm trying to say this, because it's in my head, but it's not coming out well, that I think they are scared to point out perhaps how all-consuming Christian nationalism has become in white evangelical spaces, or maybe just not take it as seriously because they still are in those spaces.
Yes. I would agree. And look, I mean, people listening are going to have different opinions on the Holy Post. I know I'm going to get some DMs after this. I would say that the Holy Post serves a really good purpose in helping people along their journey of leaving evangelical fundamentalism behind. At some point, I found them really helpful for where I was in my journey, and I kind of kept moving along, right? One of my friends, I'm not going to say their name because I don't have their permission, but they said in a text message about this, they said, my theory is that performing the rejection of liberalism is a necessary component of evangelical self-understanding. And so it is this idea that I found even in more of these moderate evangelical spaces where they still have to always kind of critique liberalism and like the problem of like the far left or the extreme left, just to kind of retain some kind of evangelical credential of like, no guys, see, look, we're not extreme like those guys either, you know? So I don't know. I mean,
because they still want to be in those circles. Like they don't want to be kicked out. They want to be like, no, look, see, we don't like the left either. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, yes, I would say that that's how it comes across. I'm not sure if that's their intent. And, I think that they're pretty hardcore never Trumpers. So I respect that for sure. And I think that's really important as we kind of, move things along here. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to get in the weeds on the holy post. That wasn't my intent. And like I said,
I think it's similar to, two things can be true, right? You could do really good work that is good and also still hold to maybe some more not so good ideologies, or I would say Julie Roys, I would say would fall into that. She does great work in uncovering abuse in the church, but she's still pretty anti-queer and does a lot of harm in that space. So two things can be true. You can be doing good work that is, calling out abuse and stopping predators while also harming marginalized people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. And of course, we always want to be open to our own standards. Like maybe there's things
we're
that
not
we
perfect.
We have to keep renegotiating. We want to be open to criticism, and of course, like I said earlier, if the Holy Post wants to do one of our videos and respond to it, like feel free. I welcome it. I would call them anytime. I would talk to them anytime. I would have the conversation anytime. My door is always open. So anyway, different discussion for a different day. But I just thought that clip, I was like, guys, like you're killing me with this. Like that shirt has a meaning behind it, So it is what it is. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, and also just reminds me too of just there's always that one kid in youth group that just Jesus juked everything. Like you couldn't make a joke. I'm like, oh, would Jesus have laughed at that? And you're like, okay, you just ruined it.
Do you want to do the tweets of the week? I mean, you kind of we shared most of them already. One thing we didn't. Maybe we can end on a better note, April. We didn't get into your cat story.
That's true.
The cat saga from last week, where you had a new foreign feline that was visiting your house.
Christmas Day, a cat showed up. So since then, I just want to point out, when that cat showed up, Beecher was like, this cat is never coming into this house, because Beecher's allergic
I stand
to
with
cats.
Beecher, by the way.
Beecher's dad is allergic to cats, and they were staying with us over the holidays too. So it was outdoor. We ordered a heated outdoor cat house for this cat. And so it stayed in there most nights. I bought it food. But then Beecher one night was like, you know what? I think we should get a kitty litter, because it's about the winter storm's about to come, and we need to put her in the garage instead of outside, because it's like single digits at night.
It's the slippery slope, though. It's the slippery slope. Just the garage and litter box. I see where this is going.
So then 2 nights ago, and 2 nights ago when the storm happened, Beecher went in the garage, was like, it's too cold. And I had already bought the kitty litter for the garage. So basically Beecher's like, okay, I got an idea. And our kids were sad that the grandparents had just left. And so as part of a way to make them happy also, we let the cat in the house just downstairs. We literally put sheets all over the couches to cat proof it. We blocked off so the cat can't go upstairs. And so they're not, this is only temporarily because it is so cold outside, is what we are saying. But it is so cute seeing Beecher with this cat. They have fallen in love with this cat, because they've always been allergic. Yeah, share the picture.
Look at that. Beecher with their cat. It happened. The slippery slope, full deconstruction. Cat lover.
So Beecher's always been allergic, and this cat is a Christmas miracle, because Beecher hasn't sneezed, which I Googled it, and apparently some cats are more produce more allergens than others, and it's really not dependent on the type of cat or whatever, but Beecher hasn't had any reaction. But we still have to be really careful, because it can't stay in our house. It's just for the cold. Then it's going to go back out.
Sure.
Because Beecher's dad is really allergic. So
April, we're going to fast forward in 5 months, and we're going to hear all about this cat, and the cat will have a name, be part of the family. This cat is not leaving the house. Oh, the cat is called
Biddy.
See? This is it, dude. This is it. You got a new family member, and the cat's name is Biddy.
Biddy, I know. So actually, and we found some background. I went on our neighborhood Facebook group to see if anyone had posted about this cat, and someone was like, has anyone seen this cat? And apparently back in October, this cat wandered to another family in our neighborhood And they didn't know whose cat this was either. So they had been keeping it outside as well because they had a bunch of dogs and an allergy as well. And she was just making sure that the cat was okay. But the cat showed up to their house with fight wounds. And so that person took her to the vet, got her antibiotic, and then
goodness.
So she's just like, I guess, like the neighborhood cat. We don't know where she came from. No one's claimed her. But anyway, Beecher is making me laugh. Like they're experiencing a cat like a child because they've never been around cat. Like they were petting her and it purred, and that was the first time Beecher had ever been close enough to a cat to hear it purr. And Beecher is experiencing the joys. Like the other day, literally yesterday, I was in the other room and Beecher was working in the office. Beecher's like, April, come here. It's like, what? He's like, come here. So I came and I looked, and Beecher had the cat in their lap. And Beecher's just like, look, she jumped in my lap.
Well, we used to have cats and now we don't.
Why?
That's my story. That's a long story.
You don't like cats?
Honestly, my wife loves cats, and so we had 2 of them, and then we had children, and then they started peeing all over the carpet like crazy.
Ew.
I know I'm gonna get DMs on this or comments about how we hate cats. That's not the case. And we gave them both to her parents essentially, so we still were able to see them, but they were just destroying our carpet, and we had an infant, and so they had to go.
That's
the
fair.
story. So
That's
anyway, listen, this was a good episode. We covered a lot of ground here. Busy news cycle will only get busier. So I appreciate you friends hanging in there with us. A lot to talk about. Again, we love your thoughts. Leave us a comment. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please make sure you do so. It really helps us. And anything else, April, you want to end us? You want to end on? You want to end the show with?
Timothy Chalamet got to shout out the Golden Globes by Nikki Glazer. And I thought about you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, on that note, see ya.